Hi, my name is Dong. I work in the Japanese animation industry. My buddy Ben once said that the only certainties in life are death and taxes and scenes in anime which the character's hair blowing in the wind. I have drawn my fair share of these types of scenes, and since they're so ubiquitous, let's learn how to animate them. So I'll be using the OpenToon software, but this is not a software tutorial, so use whatever you're comfortable with, and as such, I will not be talking about how to use the software. I have a video on OpenTunes and my workflow, so if you have any questions, please watch that. First, we need to start with the basics. Here we have something called the seaweed exercise, involving a piece of seaweed swaying in the ocean current. And this is designed to teach newer animators about wave motion. And this is the foundation for our hair blowing animation. Take some time to do this if you have never done this exercise before. Imagine this line is a piece of seaweed and it's attached to the seabed at the bottom. This line is a C curve and we will label it A1. When the seaweed moves, we will have the part fixed to the ground move first, and then have the tip be delayed. So, if there's a rightward force pushing the seaweed, the bottom half will move rightward, but the tip will be delayed and will still be moving leftward. So, for the next key, A2, it will look a bit like this S curve here. A3 will be a mirrored version of the C curve of A1, so the current will still be pushing the seaweed rightwards, and the tip by now would have caught up and will also be moving rightwards. And again, the last key drawing, A4, will be a mirrored version of A2. Here, the direction of movement changes, with a force pushing the seaweed leftwards, and since the tip is delayed, it will still be moving rightwards. This would be an S line, like A2. Now, with our keys, we can flip through them to see how the movement looks like. Now we have to add some in-betweens. I'll add 2 in-between drawings between each key drawing. The in-betweens will be technically equally spaced, but are actually a bit tricky. So while the bottom half of the seaweed acts as expected and will be equally spaced, the tip will move more in a figure 8 pattern, like this. It will make more sense if I show you, so let's turn on our onion skin and start drawing. Between A1 and A2, the line will slowly change from a C curve to an S curve. These 2 drawings are generally straightforward and you can treat them as a standard in-between. Between A2 and A3, the bottom half of the seaweed can be treated as standard in-betweens, but the tip will slow down and overshoot the key drawing while the seaweed turns from an S curve to a C curve. Also note that the spacing near the tip has been more favored towards A2, with the spacing closer there. For A3 to A4, we do the same thing we did for A1 to A2, but flipped. And again, same thing with A4 to A1, where we just flip what we did for A2 to A3. Now that we have everything drawn, I will put all the drawings on threes and we can play it back. And there, we have our swaying seaweed. Look at how mesmerizing it is. Hair blowing in the wind uses the same principle as our seaweed, except now it just becomes more complicated as we have to track multiple strands of hair. But before we think about that, we should roughly draw our character. I'm going to keep it simple and fast in my design, so nothing too complicated. I'll have the hair strands clumped into these relatively large groups. Obviously, the more groups of hair strands there are, the harder it is to draw. I'll have the hair at shorter length to make it easier to work with as well. So I have drawn everything here in one layer on my roughs, but in cleanup I will split the drawing into 3 separate layers, with layer C for the upper layer of hair, B for the head and body, and A for the hair at the back. Also note that in this drawing, the hair itself will be in the at rest position, and I will be using it as a reference. Okay, let's start rough animation. I will make a new column for this. In OpenTunes, layers are called columns, by the way. When we draw the hair, we draw it like what we did with the seaweed. Our first key will follow this C curve shape, so let's shape our groups of hair strands into that. I will try to draw the strands with different spacing between them so that it looks more natural and random. Again, for key drawing number 2, we get the drawing into this S shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's probably better for it to be not perfect, as giving the movement some randomness will make it look better. We repeat this for drawing 3, which is a mirrored version of drawing 1, and drawing 4 is a mirrored version of drawing 3. With our drawings done, let's flip through them. It looks okay, but I think we can make it better. My main problem is that the movement is too uniform, too samey. We need some overlapping action to make the animation more complex. So think about it this way. If the wind is blowing right to left, it would hit the right side of the character, and since I decided it's going to be a gentle breeze, it wouldn't really move that fast, and only after some time it would hit the left side of the character. I tried to say that not everything should be moving at the same time in the same direction. An easy way to make our animation better is to make a new column and copy the right side of our hair animation into the new column. Repeat this for all our drawings. Then, we would copy the left side of our animation from column 3 into the next drawing of column 4. So for example, we copy the left side of the hair from drawing 1 of column 3 into drawing 2 of column 4. Drawing 2 of column 3 goes into drawing 3 of column 4. Drawing 3 of column 3 goes into drawing 4 of column 4. And drawing 4 of column 3 goes into drawing 1 of column 4. Now, if we flip through our drawings, there is way more overlapping action, and I think it just looks more appealing this way. From here, I will be doing my tie downs on a new column. So this is still part of rough animation, and we will use this opportunity to fix up certain areas such as the issues with the bangs from all the copy and pastings we did, as well as to finalize line work and add color separation lines in preparation for shading. Again, check out my other videos if you have questions regarding this step. After that, I'll create a couple new columns for cleanup. I prefer to use a thin, uniform line here, mainly because it's easy. I talk about this process in detail in my other videos, so again, check those out if you have any questions. Remember to put the upper hair, the head, and the lower hair into separate columns. Once the keys are cleaned up, we should talk about the timing. There are multiple ways to do this, and you may want to experiment on your own. But for a relatively laid-back timing, I would hold each key for 9 frames with 2 in-betweens, and thus our animation will be on 3s, and just repeat that. This is the same timing we did for our seaweed exercise. And just like our seaweed exercise, we have to draw the in-betweens with that figure 8 pattern in mind. If you get lost, just refer back to our seaweed and copy the movement for each hair strand group. Once that is done, let's see how our animation is looking. And yeah, I think it looks good. Alright, let's get this colored and finished up. So here, we have a pretty simple but appealing animation. Sure, it can be improved, and since you have now learned the basics, you can experiment and make it better. Some suggestions I would make is to use more groups of hair strands and to make some individual strands on their own cycle, and in general try and make everything more random to give it a more natural look. You can also try adjusting the timing. One timing I like to do in my professional work is to straight up remove one of my keys to make the timing less uniform. Animation, like many art forms, has no limits. I hope you guys learned something. Check out my Twitter and support me on Patreon if you like, and big thanks to everyone currently on my Patreon, including Yan Zhou, Yuri Lapointe, Iraq, Avery, Austin Vircont, Ridgo, Calvin Ashley, The Cynic Clinic, Zipke, Kurlim. Alright, see you guys next time.